Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Blake Dailey. Thanks for being on the show, Blake.
Hey, it's awesome to be here, Whitney. Coming full circle. So this is good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You're just telling a story before we got started, and maybe you can share a little bit about what you mean by full circle in a minute. But it's incredible to have you to hear that and to have you on the show. But a little about Blake. He's a real estate investor as well as an Air Force contracting officer. He used the BRRRR strategy, where buy, rehab, rent residential properties, but then uses short-term rentals, after that as well. So a little different than the normal BRRRR strategy, but on small multifamily properties to surpass his W-2 income in 1 year. So incredible story. Looking forward to hearing about that. But now he focuses on syndicating larger value add or multifamily acquisitions. So I know many of you listening are dreaming of being in his shoes. And I was telling him beforehand, it's like two sets of shoes there. One is financial freedom in a year. I mean, who doesn't want to accomplish that? And then also being, getting to that first syndicated deal. So Blake, welcome to the show. Give us a little more of that backstory. You're talking about the full circle, and then let's jump into how you gained financial freedom in a year and getting this first syndication.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. And what I was saying about going full circle is that you were a guest in one of my masterminds, the War Room Mastermind that Dave Perret and Stu Grazier run. And it was back early in 2020. And you're talking about using the podcast and building your brand and, what that leads to. And I was taking like 2 pages of notes. I was like, what, this sounds really good. And just, you kind of get the authenticity from the kind of person you are. And I was like, well, if Whitney can do it, I think I might be able to do it half as good and it'll work out. So I started my podcast, and just through that started getting more active on social media, talking about the deals I'm doing and things like that, showing rehabs. And I think just through that is how, I got on this show, and here we are talking, on the podcast that you started out with. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory. And then about my journey is I'm down here in Panama City, Florida, and I started buying, right when I got here, like closed on on my first property, like 3 weeks of getting stationed here. This is my first duty station. And then from that time, like back-to-back months, closed on the next 2 and 3 deals that I had with partners. That was my first BRRRR and then my first flip. And these were through creative finance strategies. I got these, a seller finance deal and lease option deal. So just dove right into everything real estate. And from that point, started doing my own BRRRRs. But I guess to back up a little bit, the first deal we bought was a house hack, and we rented the extra unit out with Airbnb. So I saw that as a strategy we could gain higher cash flow, and we're in a good market for it. And then when we did our first BRRRR, this is my wife and I, we did all the work ourselves. It stayed up till midnight, 2 weeks straight doing this rehab. And this had 2 units and a pool. So we created this this is our first BRRRR'nb, and I like put that name to it. It's the BRRRR with Airbnb at the end, and you just rent it as a short-term rental. And this house, because it had the 2 units, we created 3 listings. So we had the main house, the guest house, and then the third listing would be the whole place together. So you could rent it for big groups, and it had a pool. I mean, really good looking property in a good area, close to the beach and all that. Close.
But that wasn't the one you were house hacking, right? Or it was? No,
this is the second one. So now At this point, we've got 3 short-term rental units, cash flowing really well. And then in the mid 2019, we added 4 more. So now we're up to 7. And that, once we got to that point, we're up in cash flowing, the listings are running. And now that is surpassed my W-2 income as a Air Force officer. So in pretty short amount of time with a low number of units, you could say 7 units and 3 long-term units right now. We're at our, financial freedom number, which has replaced my W-2 income. So pretty quick there.
Congratulations, by the way. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it is. It's incredible. It's what most are dreaming of. We all did at one time, if you're not already there. And I know that didn't come, without a lot of hard work. I appreciate you saying, you and your wife, did that first BRRRR, you did it together, and And, can you just shine a light into that a little bit of, you and your spouse doing this together? I'm sure it wasn't always easy. Were you always on the same page? Was her
Absolutely
vision
not.
the same as yours? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so we were kind of like opposites, and I brought her into this. I really drug her into it. She during this whole time she's been getting her doctorate. She just graduated in December with her doctorate in physical therapy. So while we were grinding to build up this portfolio, she was also grinding to get her doctorate. So a lot of credit to her for allowing me to do this. But yeah, I think that has been a struggle and like a area of conflict for us, and we've been dealing with it better, but it's definitely, just trying to support each other. And she's been great, and I should be better to support her more. But I think starting out is just showing her like this vision of where we could get if we, got this number of properties and got this number of cash flow, and, on and on and on, and just trying to show her that. But her whole thing was, I didn't go to school for real estate, so always an uphill battle, and we're still trying to figure out how to do it now. But now that we have kind of more systems in place and have the managers, it's a lot easier on us, and she can focus on her thing now as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love hearing, just some of the real stories behind some of that, because I lived that myself, and my wife has just been amazingly supportive. It's been amazing. But I know, you have to kind of paint that picture for.
Yeah, we definitely don't deserve our wives, it sounds like.
That's for sure. No doubt about that. But house hacking, and doing the first BRRRR with her, just congratulations to you both, and just making that happen. Because obviously she had nothing going on while getting her doctorate, right? She wasn't busy at all.
Yeah, she had nothing but free time.
Right. So how quick then did you get enough properties, or close on enough deals to gain that financial freedom number? And then I want us to talk about just your path then, from that to syndicating. But go ahead.
Yeah. So we closed our first deal, the first house hack, in July of 2019. And this was at the end of July, and like by the first week of August of 2020. So really like 12 and a half months, whatever. We had all the properties up and running, all the new Airbnbs up and running, and cash flow and guests coming in, Airbnb payouts coming. So really 12 months. And that sounds like a short amount of time, but I can attest it was a long 12 months. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, and a lot of work went into it, like probably 90-hour weeks. And that's not the path for everybody. But it's just what I wanted to do. And I had this goal and wanted to get there.
How many units was that?
In those 12 months, that was 11 units. 7 of them were short-term. 3 of them were long-term, and 1 we're living in. And then from there, we started, really kind of before that, in kind of about the time that you came on that show, or on the mastermind, is probably March, April timeframe, kind of when COVID hit. I kind of reevaluated the business, all the time that I was spending doing my real estate tasks, all the time it took me to close these deals, and all the time I was spending on maintenance on all my properties across the county now. And it was just taking me a lot of time. I saw a lot of inefficiencies there. And through that, kind of had this realization that I could do less work by focusing on less transactions. And I was wholesaling as well. So, I mean, the high volume kind of stuff. And because of that, I saw commercial multifamily as a way to do less transactions, have bigger payouts, and have the time reward be more, and just economies of scale. Really, I mean, you hear that all the time in commercial multifamily. It's scalable, and there's efficiencies built in. So I started getting into that.
Go ahead. Finish that.
I was just going to say that's where I started self-educating and putting the systems in place, that once all those deals wrapped up, and that March in that August timeframe, focused a lot more time to the commercial multifamily. And that's what led me to syndicating my first deal now.
Why not continue doing short-term rentals just like you've been doing, since it was so successful?
Yeah, so that's a question I've asked myself, and it's been kind of this internal conflict. And now it's because I do really like the strategy, and the market that I'm in is really great for it. And I'm actually doing another one right now. I got an 8 unit that I was supposed to close on Monday, but the seller's giving me a little headache. So we're dealing with that. But this is an 8 unit in Fort Walton Beach, in a good area, trying to close on that. And that's going to be 8 Airbnb units, a big BRRRR&B. So
that's
still
massive
focusing,
when like 11 got you where you're at. I mean, and then you're going to more than half that just in one deal.
Yeah, so I'm still doing both because now for the BRRRRs and, especially in the local area, I have the systems in place. I have the property managers. I have the contractors, really everything I need now. So with syndicating, my role in this deal anyway has been more of a capital raiser investor relations deal. So really I'm not the day-to-day operator spending a bunch of time, but vetting the deal, bringing capital to it. So that's kind of allowed me to balance these two acquisitions that are really a week apart from each other now.
How'd you finance all the short-term rentals?
So for the short-term rentals, like I was saying, is like every way of creative finance you could think of. So we have used hard money, we've used private money, we used seller financing. Really anything at our disposal. I read Brandon Turner's book, the book on investing with low and no money down, and have done like every one out of there except a loan assumption. So from the very beginning, I knew my own capital was going to be an issue. So the goal then became to find really good deals so that I could find private or hard money, one of those creative solutions, and then BRRRR the money out, give the investors their return back, and then I'm holding on to the property with fresh debt on it that's in my name, cash flowing.
Nice. No, that's awesome. And then I mean, everybody wonders, right? Because that's one of the difficult parts is getting financing for that many deals. And so moving forward with the short-term rentals, as the financing changed at all, or has that gotten easier? What does that look like? Because I know that's a common question. It's like we want to get to syndication. However, it's hard to get started and gain that financial number like you have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question because that's a question I get from other people trying to do this strategy too, is like, how do I get financing? I can't get a bank, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac won't loan on short-term rentals. So what I've done to overcome that is I have a local community bank or credit union that does commercial loans in-house. They have portfolio loans in-house. So then it's, my loan gets submitted to the person that I've been talking to, I have the relationship with, they know my business, they know what I do, and they've seen kind of my track record of doing deals. So by finding that local bank that does commercial loans, I've been able to overcome that. And then as I've talked to other people, they've been able to do the same thing and set up that kind of financing. So I think in the beginning, to get to that number and to find really good financing, especially if you can create the relationship, is with local banks.
What about managing? Are you self-managing these, or are you hiring that out?
So I started out that way, and me and my wife did up to 3 ourselves, and we had the systems in place. We're using all the, management tools and doing well at it. But still there's that ongoing guest communication and just involvement that me working full time and, spending equal amount of time investing just didn't have the time to. So we kind of learned everything that we wanted by self-managing and then handed it off to a property manager, I think in September.
Is that someone that's specific to short-term rentals, or is that just like a local manager who's
they're specific
smaller residential?
Yeah, they're specific to short-term rentals. I'm actually changing right now to a local manager. The one I was using was out of the market, but had the systems to manage everything, and I had my cleaners already, so we just paired those two. But the cleaner I'm switching to now is more specialized to this market, has the systems and the people in place for me to be kind of more hands off and oversight rather than in the day to day.
Nice. Well, was the goal from the beginning to get to syndicating, or was it like financial freedom? Because we don't know how long that's going to take. Like that's where we want to be. And then maybe it happened quicker than you expected. Obviously with a lot of hard work and long nights. I don't doubt that 1 second. But was it always the goal to get to, to syndicating deals?
Yeah. So when I very first started, like before I ever bought my first deal, syndicating and doing like larger commercial multifamily seemed like this thing that was, out of grasp for a beginner and something that you'd have to work up to. And I just found out through doing it that, and especially like raising money, getting a commercial loan for the small residential stuff I was doing, it's pretty much the same process. So I knew down the road, I always wanted to get into bigger deals, but I just didn't think it was accessible for me just starting out. So I got a little experience under my belt and then went through the basic steps of, syndicating a larger deal, and then just had the realization like, this isn't some pie in the sky. It's achievable. It's absolutely possible. It's just a matter of educating and figuring out the steps needed to complete that process. It's like anything. So it just became more digestible to me as I got some deals under my belt. And then I just went full steam into it because I realized how inefficient residential can be.
Now that you're fixing to close on your first syndication, and I say that also, just so a listener knows, when you're hearing this, he's already closed, so we can talk about it because it is a 506B deal. I did ask him that ahead of time, but now that you know what you accomplished financial freedom through short-term rentals, and now you're moving into syndication. Would you have done it any differently, getting to syndication?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, no. I think so. When I talk to people they ask the same thing a lot of times. And I say, if you want to get into bigger deals, go right into it. Just educate. And I kind of like point out some resources that they can do. I have someone on my website that, those resources that can get you there faster. But for me, it was kind of a confidence builder, right? You go through like this kind of imposter syndrome thing when you start out, like, I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills or, the network needed to do these bigger deals. So for me, it was really good to go through some of the reps and build the confidence and build the experience I thought I needed to go out and be a more efficient operator. So for me, I wouldn't change it because it was for me, not a natural progression, but my natural progression. So
how much did your location help you to have the success in short-term rentals? Or do you think you would have been as successful if you were doing it, many states away?
Yeah, I think the location is definitely helpful, but it's not like a prerequisite, right? I'm in a vacation kind of market, but detached from it because everybody comes to Panama City Beach, but I'm in Panama City, which for those that don't know, there's like a big bridge that separates the two, and it's like a barrier. Like townies can't go to the beach, and beach people don't go to the town. It's this weird thing. So I'm all my properties are 20 to 25 minutes away from the beach, but people still come here. There's the Air Force Base. There's a big rebuild after the hurricane. There's jobs coming to the area. So there's more things that bring people to the area other than just the beach. But of course, in high season, I benefit from it from being the budget option. But I think there's other really good markets for it, right? You could be, outside of a big city or outside of a tourist attraction. Really anywhere that people are coming is a place that you can have a short-term rental. So yes, my market has helped me, but it doesn't have to be a true vacation rental market for you to have a good short-term rental.
What's been some of the biggest hurdles getting to this first syndication?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think starting out when you're calling brokers and you're trying to create this almost fake credibility because you don't have any deals yet. So trying to convince them to give you the good deals or show you the good deals so that you can underwrite them. That has been a struggle and quite frankly still is. But I think it's just, it's battling through that, right? It's giving the brokers the right feedback. It's educating to be able to speak their language, because if you're coming in using the wrong terms, they're gonna find you out really quickly. So yeah, it's stuff like that is I've seen be the biggest frustration. And then creating the relationships, right? Because if you're going to be syndicating, you're going to be raising money. So building those relationships up front before the deal comes and having kind of, this capital stack ready to go, or, just talking to your friends and family or extended network. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested if I found a really good deal that gave you equity and cash flow and all these, all these benefits of real estate? So I think those are the two things: building up a network of brokers who take you seriously, and then building up capital beforehand.
What were a couple of things that's helped you to build up your investor base? You're talking about like having that capital beforehand. That's, a lot of us talk about that, and it's so important. You can't close a deal without the money. That's, no
exactly,
doubt about it. But it's difficult, right? Getting started. Yep. And when you have no track record in syndication, give us a couple things that were crucial to you to be able to raise a little money now, or a bunch. Yeah, I don't know how much you raise.
Yeah. For me, the biggest thing that I've seen pay off has been like find your like discourse community, whatever that is. For me, like I went to the Air Force Academy, so I can easily connect with other academy grads and have that, this fostered just already relationship because we went through the same thing. For you, Whitney, maybe it's, police officers, or maybe it's somebody else who went through a different program, and you can connect with people from that program and just have that underlying background that already ties you together. And then you strengthen those relationships. So for me, that's been really big. And then just one thing people don't want to do is just pick up their phone and call people. I think you have to have the conversations. You have to kind of get over your fear. For me, it was that imposter syndrome. So you have to get over those things and then just go, gravitate towards those communities you're already a part of and just dig deep there.
Give us I love that. Before I move on, I wanted to say that, the connections are crucial, and it helps speed things up so much if you already have something in common, right? I mean, you already have this thing that almost connects you immediately.
Yeah, it's so hard to take somebody from a stranger. Yeah, it's hard to take strangers and make them investors, but there's so many relationships you already have. Like if you're listening to this, there's so many relationships that you already have that you might not be aware of, that you have a tie with somebody, and you can use that. So speak to preparing for a downturn, and maybe you can speak to the short-term rental side. A couple of things that you do, or you make sure you have in place. When there's a downturn, I feel like obviously people aren't traveling maybe as much, and maybe there's an issue there with short-term rentals. I know there's a big thing with Airbnb, recently, all that. Speak to that, but then also speak to the syndicating side. Now that you're partnering on syndication, or what do you look for there as well? Yes, I'll start out with the short-term rental side, and I will preface this by saying, like, people are still traveling. People want to travel. People don't want to be condemned to their households or like their small towns. They want to get out, and especially the places like that have a beach or that are in the mountains where people can get out away from population centers. Rural Airbnbs have been absolutely killing it since the pandemic started, and then on that, people are traveling, but people don't trust hotels anymore because it's a congregated mass of people. They don't trust the sanitized, the rooms. They're not being clean enough, and just hotels are really hurting right now. But Airbnbs have really been thriving. They took a little shot in mid-March to the beginning of April last year when everything shut down. But since then, they've rebounded and done really nicely. So and I think that's one good thing to know is kind of what market you're in, what demographic of traveler you're catering to. And a thing I also do with all my short-term rentals is I ensure that they will cash flow as a long-term rental. So with all of mine being residential properties, first of all, they're separated, right? They're away. They don't have to go stay in a hotel. They can stay in somebody's house and be away from a bunch of people and just be with their family. And from there, all mine cash flow as a long-term rental. So, if Airbnb went under, they went public now, which has really helped it. But if they went under, I could still rent mine as long-term rentals and cash flow. Albeit it'll be lower cash flow, but I'd still be making, $200 to $300 per door off of them, which is pretty good cash flow for a long-term rental in this area.
That's really good. No, I love that tip there. Just ensure their cash flow is long-term rental as well. You always have that backup. And what about your syndication?
Yeah, for the syndication, I think this is one of those things that's said too often. It's thrown around, but it's conservative underwriting. And I've seen like some people's, quote unquote conservative underwriting, and it's just really not conservative. You still see, like 4+% rent growth in year one and on. You don't see anything for concessions or loss to lease, when people may or not be paying because of COVID related issues. So that's one thing. So I'd say it's just underwrite conservatively, and then again, pick the right market. So see, like if you go, one good tip I heard is like U-Haul just released their like 2020 migration trends report. So see where people are going and look in markets that fit your criteria based off of that, because obviously like population centers, some of them are not faring too well right now, but if you can, find where the net migration is positive, those are going to be places that are going to do well. And then again, like in multifamily, it's always job growth, population growth, and wage growth. So if you hit those three things in your market and you truly underwrite conservatively, like I've had to turn down deals that looked good if I underwrote them kind of aggressively, but the conservative nature in me, if I'm going to bring investor capital to the deal, like it has to meet a conservative metric, or I just can't do it. So I've had to pass on some opportunities because of that. And I think, that's one of those deals that somebody could easily get into right now, being overzealous. And then if they do so, could be hurting if there truly is a downturn.
Do you have any predictions over the next 6 to 12 months in the real estate market?
Oh man, I definitely do not have a crystal ball, Whitney, but yeah, I think multifamily is always a good asset class to be in. Commercial multifamily for sure, just because your risk is spread out over many doors, and that's why I got into it in the first place. And then for the short-term rental game, I think you're going to continue to see a strong trend of travel this spring and summer. People are going to stay away from hotels, probably likely through 2021. Probably sometime the hotels will probably rebound in 2022. I don't know that for sure, but for the foreseeable future, short-term rentals are going to do well.
I like talking about and just stressing to the listener often just the power of self-discipline. And I've talked about it many, many shows. And obviously, I've talked about my military and law enforcement background and often how that's helped me. And I wonder about you, and I wanted to go ahead and say thank you for your service, and always grateful to those that are willing to serve. But did that play a role, or how did you gain such a high level of self-discipline? No doubt you've had to have a high level of self-discipline to accomplish what you did in the first year, and now getting to your first syndicated deal that fast. So just tell us a little about that.
Yeah, that's one thing the military is really good for is teaching you that discipline, and I think I had it even before the military, but the military definitely kind of ingrained it and stained it in even deeper. But really, I come from an athlete background. I went to the academy on a football scholarship. So just right away, I was the person who was probably more unathletic than most people on the team. So I just had to be a harder worker. And that's kind of always the way I've been, just to be able to, play, or just to be able to be in this real estate game, is just by outworking people and spending my evenings looking at the properties or running numbers or doing whatever, while people might not be doing that. So yeah, I think self-discipline is huge, especially when the deals aren't coming, or when you're having a rehab that's going poorly and you're just, aggravated with it. But if you know that if you stick with it, like real estate is a get rich slow game. So if you stick with it, it's going to pay off, and just having the grit and the perseverance to stick through those hard times, and stay disciplined along the route. That's definitely been important for me.
I appreciate you highlighting too, like you weren't the most athletic, and I feel like that but it was the hard work, right? And I feel like that in the real estate business, it's like, I'm no genius, but man, I'm willing to get in there and put in as many hours as anybody else, or I think, I try to anyway. And that's really paid off. But what about any daily habits that you have that have helped you achieve success?
Yeah. So one habit that I just, that's really been faring me well recently is I've turned off all my notifications other than text messages. So like all the email notifications, all the social media notifications, those are gone. And it's changed my productivity in a big way, especially like working from home for the Air Force, is like staying disciplined with my Air Force time, and then, using the rest of the time for real estate activities. But just on a daily basis, like I wake up at 4:15 or 4:30 every day and do my morning routine. So read, meditate, and I work out in the morning, and getting through that early kind of sets my mindset, sets my focus. I'm not looking at notifications when I wake up in the morning. So that's a huge productivity boost right there. And then, when I sit down at 7 a.m., I'm ready to go, feeling refreshed, just worked out. And that's helped me out a lot. Like when I changed my workout routine to the morning and like did that, started the morning routine, saw my productivity go up. So I'd say like, if you can just get up a little bit earlier and get like kind of your most important stuff done early in the day, then you'll see a lot come from it.
Are you disciplined about going to bed at a specific time, or getting a certain amount of sleep, getting up that early?
Yeah, I think for me, I try to cut it off like 9 or 9:30, which is pretty early. Me and my wife joke like we're the old couple already. But yeah, I mean, she's getting her doctorate. I'm investing and working full time. So like we both work pretty long days. So I think when 9 or 9:30 rolls around, we're just ready to hit the bed. And I just, yeah. Sometimes I think that where the self-discipline comes in is when the alarm starts blaring at 4:15 and you're like, do I get up today? But then you lay there and think like somebody else is getting up, so I better get up.
I like that. I like that thought right there. Somebody else is getting up, so I better get up. I like that a lot because that is like one of the hardest decisions, and it's like of the day, and it's the first thing you have to do. So that's awesome. Tell me your best source for meeting new investors right now.
Ooh, best source. I think social media and specifically LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of engagement, started a lot of conversations through LinkedIn. And how you do that is just by providing value. And if you don't, have a brand or anything, maybe that's engaging in other people's posts, maybe sharing articles that you find helpful, doing stuff like that. For me, like I write my own articles and do research and stuff like that. And obviously my podcast as well. But there's ways to produce content and produce value to get out there in front of people and start this dialogue with people about those topics. And then it just leads, like you find, those commonalities with those people that you're interacting with. And it just it turns into a relationship. And then, hey, if you're interested in cash flow and passive investing, we can talk about that too. And then I also host a local meetup here in PCB that's in person, one of the few places that we can do that, because I think the COVID is killed by sunshine. So down here in the Sunshine State, we can still meet in person. But yeah, I think online, and if you can go to meetups, do it.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been partnerships. And what I mean by that is like finding the right people who their goals and their values align with yours. And I think both of those are key, because if they just want the same thing, that might not, or that definitely is not as important as what goes behind what motivates them and what motivates you. And if you can align both of those, that's where I think you can create magic.
How do you like to give back?
Yeah. So for me, I'm part of the company grade officer committee on Tyndall, and I'm the community service chair of that group. So I try to find ways that we can either pool resources or give our time to volunteer for good causes. And here in a little bit, we're going to build a house for Habitat for Humanity, things like that. And then also is just providing value and helping people through some of the same real estate speed bumps, I would say, not full on obstacles, but just little speed bumps that you got to get over. And especially with the short-term rental stuff, I've gone through a lot of that. I've self-managed. And that's one thing that I've seen people have a lot of interest in, because they know they can make really good cash flow off of it, and then potentially even like get a vacation home out of it when they're not renting it. So that's kind of been a hot topic. So love talking about that stuff. And then also, on the real estate syndication side, just providing value and helping people where I can.
Awesome, Blake. Well, great show. I'm grateful for your time. This has been great to get to know you better. And I just think your story can be so motivating to many of the listeners. And congratulations to you and your wife for, just making that financial number happen in a year and now getting your first syndication. And I just think it's a great path to getting there for a lot of people that maybe they haven't considered, some short-term rentals just to replace their income. Because I find that, once you can leave your job, and maybe you don't intend to since you're in the military, I don't know, but as most people do, want to leave that day job, right? And so maybe that's the path to make that happen fast to gain enough cash flow. But then for long-term wealth, man, you can focus on that syndication business so much more once you can leave that job. Exactly. Just grateful for your going through how you found those deals, how you financed them and making that happen. And even just the downturn preparation for short-term and syndications and your daily routine. I think we can learn so much just from what you even said just about that. If you can start making that happen. I mean, I've seen that happen personally as well when I started structuring that morning routine. I loved how you said, turn off the notifications, so important. And partnerships, aligning on those most important things, so crucial. So crucial. And so congratulations again. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, Blake.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. I appreciate the kind words there. And guys, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way would be go to multifamilyjourney.com. That's my website. On there, you can find my email. You can schedule a call if you want to talk about syndication or short-term rentals. Like, I'm very open with my time. I want to help. So if there's anything that I can help, also have free resources on there. So multifamilyjourney.com would be the best way.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.